Well, I have had a very busy week this week. My sister got married, and then Father Martin got married, and I've just been party planning and just having a very good time, but also a very busy time. And I thought I'd go ahead and tell you all a story. And this is really just to help me relax more than anything else. But this story is one that a lot of people think is fictional, which is actually true. And I guess if you believe that the man in gray exists, you probably should believe that something like this would happen. After all, the man in gray loves to be unlikely. Unlikeliness is very likely in his case. So that pretty much anything is possible. And I should also mention very quickly that the reason why I tell these sorts of tales is really actually a pretty selfish one. It just gets a lot of views and it gets a lot of publicity. In order for this brand to even get anywhere, you have to tell a few stories that everyone knows about, so that the stories that nobody knows about can be heard. But that's my reasoning. I apologize for it, but it's just kind of the way it is. But anyways, this story concerns a very poor family, the White family. And they lived in this little cottage, and the son would go off to work at the mill, and the father and mother would stay home, and they were just basically retired. But anyways, one day the father and son were sitting there and they were playing chess, and they had heard that a friend of their father's, a Sergeant Major Morris, was coming over to visit, and that he had came all the way from India and had just came back and was going to see them. Well, anyways, eventually he did arrive, and the father and the son stopped and playing chess, and they went over and they began to talk to them, and the mother was there, and they listened to his stories about India, and they were quite fantastical stories, stories too unbelievable even to tell here. But anyways, finally, the son looked down and he noticed that he seemed just a bit nervous, and he was fidgeting with something in his hand. And as he looked closer, he realized that it was a monkey's paw. Well, anyways, the son asked him about it, and Sergeant Major Morris lifted up, and it was kind of it had these sort of dangling claws, and it was very mummified. And Morris explained, well, this is something that was given to me by a priest, and the priest told me that a man that lived there had bewitched it and put a curse on it. This curse was to show that fate was preordained, and it allowed that three different people could have three wishes from this. Well, the first one ended up dying, the first man, and the second one is myself. And the father looked at Sergeant Major Morris and asked, well, did you get your wishes? And he nodded his head. Yes, and they happened so slightly that I could have sworn it was a coincidence. But anyways, it's all done now, and, well, and Sergeant Major Morris just quite unexpectedly threw it into the fire. And the father let out a scream, and he went down and he retrieved it with a little bucket, and he said, a little pail, and he said, why did you do that? We would like the three wishes if you would be so kind. Sergeant Major Morris said that he should probably not, that the thing was bewitched. And there was quite a bit of quarreling amongst them, but finally Sergeant Major Morris said that if they wanted to use it, they could have it. But he warned them to just make a very simple wish. That was the key. Well, anyways, he left, and the family sat around and they discussed what they should wish for. And the mother suggested that the father should wish that he should be some kind of prince and have all this wealth and these temples and be known throughout the world. But the son said, well, why don't you wish for like 200 pounds? Something simple, And the father thought about it and said, well, all right. I wish for 200 pounds. And nothing happened. They all looked around, and the son joked, well, maybe it will fall on your bed in the middle of the night in a sack. Well, anyways, they all had a good laugh about it, and they went to bed. And the next morning they woke up, and nothing had changed. There was new 200 pounds, and they all thought it was just a good joke. And the son left to go off to work in the mill, and the father and the mother just sat there, and the father told the mother about a strange dream he had in the night. He said that in the fireplace, when he was looking over at it, he swore he saw a monkey's face, but then he admitted that it could have been anything. It was probably just a trick of the light. Well, anyways, as they were sitting there, the mother looked out the window and she noticed a man standing at the edge of the street. And the man seemed rather nervous. He seemed to be, just sort of like hesitating to enter the building. Well, anyways, eventually the man walked over and he knocked at the door and the mother opened it. And the man came in and he said, "Excuse me, I have some bad news. There was an accident at the mill." And the mother said, "Oh, what happened?" And he said, "Well, your boy, there was a problem with the machinery, and he got rather mangled up, and the man was crying at this point, and the father and mother were crying as well, and and the man explained how the boy had died, and that the firm was taking full responsibility, and they were willing to pay for everything, and the father said, "Well, how much are we going to get?" And the father was rather expecting the answer, and the answer was exactly what you probably are thinking it is: £200. Well, anyways, there was silence in the White House for the rest of the week, and the funeral was all prepared, and it was quite a big gathering. There was quite a lot of people that came to it, and the father and mother were grieving for quite a long time. When a father and mother loses their son, it can be one of the worst things in the world that could ever happen to anyone. And one night they were laying in their beds when the mother sat up and she began to nudge the father's shoulder, and she said, "Do you still have that monkey paw?" And the father said, "Why, yes, it's in the living room on the bookshelf. Why?" And she said, "Why, we could use the second wish to have our boy come back to life. It has to grant it." Well, anyways, the father said, "I don't want to be messing around with those things any more." And the mother said, "Oh, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of your son? Is that it? There's no reason to be frightened. He will come back and we will all be a happy family again." Well, anyways, the father continued to refuse, but the mother was persistent, so that finally he was led down to the bookshelf, and he went over and he picked up the mummified monkey paw, and the mother said, "Well, go ahead, make the wish." And the father, he lifted it up and said, "I wish that my son was alive." Then, all at once, they heard a knock at the door, and the mother said, "Did you hear that?" And the father said, "Oh, it was probably just a rat or the wind." But then there was another knock, and the mother said, "Oh, it's my boy. He's come back to life. The monkey paw has granted our request." Anyway, she started to run towards the door, and the father, he started to remember the mangled corpse. He had saw it there himself, and he was sure that it had been his son, and fear took over his heart. And as she ran towards the door, he lifted up the monkey paw again and made a third wish. Well, anyways, as the mother opened the door, she opened it to an empty street, and all there was the street light flickering and dead silence.